Hey there, and welcome to the Confident Woman Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Brooks. Join me as I sit down and chat with co-hosts, friends, and carefully curated guests and talk about all the things that empower you to become your best and most confident self. So, let's get started. I want to share something a bit more personal today. I've been sitting with this question, and I don't think I ever knew what it meant at first. But after I had a little time to finally breathe and have that space where I can catch my breath, literally after surviving one of the most difficult, challenging, hardest seasons of my entire life, I just call it the storm. Because I finally had a chance to look back at what actually happened and see the aftermath. And it's wild. But the question that keeps coming back to me is this: what is it costing me? Because I think sometimes we don't ask that, especially when we're in the middle of life storms, right? We tend to think we can handle it, and then we find ourselves reciting scripture, I can do all things, right? And we ask God for more strength, and we're asking Him to give us this power to get through, and just so that we can keep going with grace and gratitude, and we just plow through. We're determined to make this work, and we tap into our own inner strength and our self-affirming labels like, I am strong, I am driven, I can hold it all together just a little bit longer, until we can't, right? Our strength and our will are not finite, and that's the problem. We think it is. We think we are. We think if we just say it enough and convince ourselves enough, that eventually it'll be enough and that we can carry it all. But the truth is, we're not, and we never will be. And that is the fact, and yet we all chase and strive to do more and perform more and prove more, all for ourselves and for others, that we are enough. But we're not. We can keep showing up, keep carrying the weight, and keep making ourselves fit into places and spaces and roles for the seasons that we're in that technically work, but they don't fully fit anymore. And I think that's where I was, or at least where I found myself as of late. So every year around my birthday, I do this thing where I start gathering my thoughts. I just sit down and think about them. And even though I don't gather them all right away, which is probably part of the problem, but I start collecting them in my head. And so for me, I like to treat my birthday like it's its own personal new year because, after all, it falls in the middle of the year. So while everyone else is doing their deep reflection work in December or January, yes, I still do that, but the deeper work technically happens around this time in June. And this year, for the obvious reasons, it just felt so much more heavier than normal. And so I had so many thoughts floating around and things I wanted to say, things I wanted to write, things I was still trying to make sense of. And yet this past year, when I look back, I realized it had stretched me in years and ways, and I can't even explain, but I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. I'm still trying to make sense of it all. But yet I had all of these pieces in my head that I thought I would eventually sit down and dump onto paper, get it out of me, and process. And then something happened. And it felt like the whole mental file just permanently got deleted. I was so bummed. And it really, that's like the only way I could think to explain it is like somebody just went in and Control-Alt-Delete. Everything got dumped. So everything that I've been carrying all these thoughts around for days and probably even weeks, and to be honest, probably like all year, I'm thinking of all, okay, this was a lesson, this was a blessing, this is a thing. And they were all getting compartmentalized. And all of a sudden they were gone. So the whole bubble popped. And everything I thought I was going to say, everything that I've been collecting, all of it, just gone, scattered. So the night before my birthday, I got home and I tried to retrace my steps. I tried to remember what I'd been thinking about, what are some of the lessons, like the big things that have happened this year, the things I want to take away, things I want to let go, things that I've been feeling, and really what was the point of even all of this, right? And usually I could find this thread, the little thread. I just need a fiber where I could sit down and start unraveling so that I can start writing and eventually something starts to come out. That's when the unraveling begins. But this year, it was different. I felt so different because, one, to be honest, I didn't really want to reflect on the previous year. It was one of the hardest, most darkest, most, well, I don't know. It was just heavy. It was the heaviest season I've ever gone through. It was just too much. And all of that came with, I guess, a lot of pain and suffering, but a lot of things that broke me and broke me open. And all I wanted to do was just be done with it. I wanted to get through that season. I wanted to just set it aside and stop carrying all of the weight that I had been carrying. I was just trying to keep it there, let the past live in the past. And that's probably maybe the best way that I could say it. And, when I didn't want to look back, I didn't want to find the lesson. Like, I just really wanted to move through this as quickly as possible. But, one of the things that I realized is that I don't necessarily want to relive it ever. And I don't want to say that I didn't learn something because I always do. I think I was just so weakened by the weight of it all. It just crushed me. And so the next morning on my birthday, when I sat down with my journal, I was still feeling all of it. I wrote what I could recall, what I could remember. And one of the things that I wrote, that I was releasing the emotional stress and the weight of last year. I wrote that I wanted to leave it behind me. And I wrote that I only wanted to bring love, happiness, peace, and freedom into this next year of my life. And then I wrote, surrender my day to his will and his way. And as I wrote that, I was cool. Like, this is what I do every morning. I journal. And the crazy thing is that I had no idea what was coming next. And that's the part I keep coming back to, because I wrote that before anything happened, before the curveball, before the conversation, literally before the thing I did not see coming. And looking back now, I smile because I could see how God was already preparing my heart before the day began and my circumstances changed. At the time, I thought I was just journaling because, like I said, that's what I do every morning. And because I like to set the day and the tone. Like, I just want to ease into the morning, set the tone, keep it calm, put out my expectations, the things that I want to focus on, the things I want to do, and the things that I want to achieve. But more importantly, how I want to feel that day. And what I wanted was to start this new year stress-free and weightless. I wanted peace. I thought I was trying to get the weight out of my head and off of my body. And I thought I was essentially writing that down as like a birthday wish for myself. But this is where God, and only God, can have his hand in all of this. What I found was God was loosening my grip before something got removed from my hands. And then life threw me that curveball that I totally didn't see coming. And I'm not going to get into all the details about that, so I'll spare you that. But it's not even the point. But the point is what happened inside of me afterward, because it totally was unexpected. I expected to feel crushed. I expected to feel embarrassed and rejected and, go down the failure loop. And I expected to feel the anxiety rise in me and that prickly blood feeling that runs throughout your whole body. And I just thought I was going to lose my damn mind. Honestly, I thought I was going to fly off the handles, because honestly, that's probably what I would have done in any other season. But at this point, I was just so over it. And after the initial shock, I I let it all out. Like, a huge sigh of relief completely came over me. And instantly, I felt lighter. Like, for real. I felt lighter. I felt freer. I felt like this pressure that I had been carrying for weeks, maybe even months, to be honest, probably all year. It just felt suddenly like this release from my body. And later that day, a conversation gave way to what I think my spirit already knew. It was time to let go of the assignment. That sentence stayed with me all day. And still even now as I'm recording this. That statement was said to me and it had stayed with me all this time. Let go of the assignment. And when I say that, I'm not talking about letting go of your assignment, meaning abandoning your responsibilities or walking away just because something's hard or you're just over it. That's totally not what I'm talking about. And what I mean by that is in these moments when something was yours. It was yours for a season. It was yours for a time being. But then somewhere along the way, you started confusing the assignment with alignment, and your identity paid the price. You start thinking that because you were needed here, there, wherever, or that you had something to prove to yourself or to others, and you could make it about that it mattered, and you could find all these just reasons and causes of why you just kept carrying it, and you said yes to it, and you did it once, so therefore you'll keep doing it. And I think that that's where it hit me. I'd been holding on to something so tightly, trying to make it work, trying to do the right thing. I kept trying to show up, do the things that are responsible and expected of me, and the things that I set for my own standard of excellence, and, all these things that I thought I was doing the right thing. And then suddenly it was like God said, you can put that down now. It's time to let go of the assignment. And like I said, totally not expected. But either way, again, as I wrote in my journal, it was His will, His way, and this is what I needed. And that's what I keep coming back thinking about. How often do we surrender our will for His will and our way for His way? And then pray for freedom, but then panic when freedom requires us to release. We ask God to lead us, direct us, guide us, order our steps. And then when He actually does, we want to argue with the route because it doesn't look like the plan that we had in our head. We say that we want peace, but we keep gripping the thing that holds on to us. We say we want freedom, but we still want control of how perfect our plans should be. And I'm saying we, but I'm really talking about me. Like, let's be honest here. And maybe it's you too. Like, you get a little chuckle out of this because when you see yourself in this, you're like, okay, there I am. I see it. But literally, I'm still a work in progress, a recovering perfectionist who wrestles against her spirit and flesh every single day. Because I have said 1,000 times, and every rejection is a redirection. I believe that. I've said that. I've taught it. I've encouraged other women with it. But it feels completely different when you have to live it in real time, when you're on the receiving end. It feels different when redirection interrupts your actual life and you feel helpless, right? It feels like you've lost your sense of control and power, and it taints the vision of hope for your plans. It feels different when it touches your pride and you feel small and ashamed. When it touches the part of you that wanted to be chosen, valued, seen, appreciated, or understood. And now you feel useless, helpless, powerless, worthless, like will never be enough. And I think that's where the cost comes in. Because for a while, I was more focused on what it would cost me to let go than what it was costing me to keep holding on. And that's the part I didn't want to look at. Sometimes the thing that's costing you peace is also giving you something you think you need. It might be giving you structure, security, certainty, stability. It might be giving you something to point to and say, see, I'm doing something. Look at me. At least I'm moving forward, making progress, being productive, achieving, producing, performing. Look at me being all responsible and stuff. I'm finally getting back on my feet. And while maybe that's true, maybe it did serve a purpose, sometimes that thing can serve a purpose and still be over and done. Something can be part of this bridge and still not be the place you build your whole life. And something can help you for a season and still not be yours to keep carrying. And I think that that's where I had to see it all. And it's crazy how many parables and scriptures come to mind just thinking, just talking and processing this all out loud. It's just, God is so good. But I had taken on something in a season where it was forced upon me. And I took on this role and responsibility as needed. But what I really needed was to be held and supported. I needed structure. I needed something that felt like solid ground and not the life that felt forced and built upon quicksand in a second. And that's where my whole life got flipped upside down. And the thing is, I knew it. I knew all of that. But instead of letting go and drowning, I held on tighter, longer, kicking and screaming, fighting the season that held me down. And while I wasn't confused about who I am, or what I'm capable of, or what I'm called to build, I was lost at sea in one of life's most wicked storms, just being tossed around, struggling to find my footing, find my way, and find myself. This woman I once was lost her way and got lost within. I knew it didn't fully fit, but it was something. And sometimes that something feels safer than nothing. And that's the part that I had to be honest with. Because sometimes you try to make something fit because at least it gives you something to hold on to. At least it gives you a little bit of stability. At least it gives you proof that maybe you're not starting over from the bottom again. And the moment I felt like I was just beginning to gain my footing and traction again, I was to let it go. And I think I had become more attached than I realized. A place I was finally able to rest, if even for a few moments. And that rest gave me the support I needed. And a little bit of security. Okay, maybe a little bit more. But either way, I was just beginning to get back on my feet. And maybe this is the step. Maybe this is something that I could do right now while figuring everything else out. And again, I could do it. That was never the issue. Because the truth is, I can do a lot of things. I can do hard things. After all, I could do all things, right? Through Christ. And that's the part of the problem. I can show up and I can do the work. I can be good at it. I can bring excellence into something even if the thing itself doesn't match up with who I am. That's just how I'm naturally wired. That if I say yes, I show up. If I don't care about something, it's easy for me to pass. But the thing is, I pour my heart and soul into so much of what I do that I don't care if it's seen or unseen. I don't care if it looks impressive from the outside because I'm going to do the work well because that is who I am. It's part of my character. So when the assignment ended, I had to sit with why I needed all of that to be known so badly. Why did I need to defend that? Why did I need to make sure that the ending did not make me look less than who I am? And why did I need to prove that I was still valuable, still capable, still useful, still worth choosing? Because that's where it started getting deep for me. When you've spent so much of your life proving your worth through what you can do, what you can carry, what you can handle, what you can produce, what you can fix, an ending doesn't always feel like an ending. It feels like a final verdict. And I don't think that was the question that God was asking. I think the question was, Rachel, what is this costing you? What is it costing you to keep trying to fit somewhere you already know you don't fully belong? To make yourself smaller because smaller feels safe, to keep proving you can handle something that is slowly taking more from you than what you care and want to admit. And I could barely answer that for myself without wanting to argue with it. Because if I answered it with honesty, then I have to face where I've been gripping, where I've been so scared to let go, where I've been trying to force something because I needed it to mean that I was okay. I needed it to mean I was rebuilding. I needed to mean that I was not lost within myself, or that in everything that life has been, but that there is hope and there was a way. And so maybe that cost was peace. It was clarity. Maybe the cost was trying to squeeze a much bigger woman with much bigger gifts, much bigger experience, and a much bigger vision into something that was only meant to just be a step for that season. And again, there's nothing wrong with these steps. There's nothing wrong with starting small. But sometimes we make this harder because we think it's something that if something ends, we have to make the whole thing wrong. Like it's a failure, that it didn't work, that it wasn't true, that it didn't serve its purpose. And it got me moving. It reminded me that I can continue to show up despite my circumstances and situations. And it gave me something to do with my hands when life felt heavy. It gave me a little bit of direction and some structure in a season where I needed more structure than I ever cared to admit, because everything that I was doing just felt meaningless, even though it had purpose. And I don't want to have to make this a mistake that I repeat twice. But I also don't have to keep carrying it just because I did, and it had a purpose, and it served its time. And so when I think about how it made me feel, feeling lighter after that initial shock had worn off, it was something I had been trying so hard to hold myself together when I realized that finally none of this was mine to carry. And I think my spirit knew that before my mind wanted to admit it. My mind wanted the explanation, and my pride wanted the defense, and my fear wanted the security. But my spirit knew the assignment was over. And if God is ending the assignment, I don't have to turn around and make it mean something about my worth. I can let it be what it is, just a season, a step, a bridge, just a thing that helped me for a little while, and the thing I do not have to keep shrinking myself into just because it was familiar, just because it happened. And I think that that's where I keep coming back to the journey of becoming, because becoming keeps coming back to me, right? Because this is the part where we have to ask who we are becoming when the assignment ends, when the roles change, when the thing we were holding on to no longer holds on to us, and when God starts pulling us out of this place that we kept trying to fit into because we were too scared of having nothing to hold on to at all. And maybe this becoming is all about the self-exploration of the woman you are today into who He has called and equipped you to become, not anything in the past, because the becoming is the constant journey, the evolution. And so maybe the question isn't always, why did this happen? But maybe the question is, what was I carrying that God just gave me permission to release? Was this still mine to carry? Or was I holding on to it because I didn't know who I'd be without it? Am I calling this responsibility when it's really fear? And then the question you got to ask yourself is, what is it costing me? Because that one will preach to me first. And dang, like I said, when I thought that, I was like, oh my gosh, it's costing me my peace. It's costing me my mental and emotional bandwidth and capacity. It's costing me my time and energy. It's costing me so much of me that I feel I had already given so much away. And so as Proverbs 3:5-6 says, to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. And I know we hear this verse all the time, but this one, it hits differently, especially when you actually, you don't even understand it yet, but it hits different when the plans change and you're already standing there trying to make sense of something you didn't see coming. And then Proverbs 16:9, it says, we can make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps. Again, sounds all beautiful until the steps don't look like the plan, right? And that's where I am right now. I'm learning to let go, choosing to trust God, and trying not to grab back what He has already made space for me to release. I don't want to pick on any of that stuff back up. It's heavy. It's used. I already know what it's like. Didn't want to carry it then. Don't want to carry it now. So why do we keep going back to that? And I know it sounds familiar because you can already know what it feels like and you can predict it and all that stuff. But why do we keep going back to it? And I guess I'll throw in another verse here. It's like the dog that returns to his vomit. We already know what to expect. So why? If God has already told us to set it down, He's got something better, bigger and better planned for us. So why do we keep going back? I don't know. These are things that I'm processing in real time. So maybe I challenge you to ask yourself these questions too. And so if that's where you are too, in that in-between space and place where something is ending or shifting or literally just no longer fits you, you don't have to know what to call it or just surrender this. Because maybe what you're already holding on to is the something that it already gave you proof, it gave you structure, it gave you something that pointed in your life of where it knocked the wind out of you. And maybe you're just trying to make something fit because you're so scared of what happens when you finally let it go. But again, trust and surrender. God has your back. So sit with God and ask, is this still mine to carry? Is this still aligned with who you are calling me to become? Or am I holding on to it because I'm so scared of what happens if I release it? So God, is this still mine to carry? And if it's not, give me the courage to release it. Give me the strength to let go. And that's where I'm sitting with this week. And if this episode met you in that place too, thank you for seeing me and I see you. And I have a quiz that I want to link. Hey there. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the Confident Woman Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. Thanks again for listening. In the show notes below, where I think would be really helpful because this has been a huge eye-opener for me in my own becoming journey. So take it if you need somewhere to start, because you don't need anything else that's another label or performance or any of that stuff to prove your worth. Because sometimes naming the season you're in, God will show you what you do need to release, and it gives you the permission and enough space to hear what He's asking you to let go, release, rebuild, or become. So until next time, take care and God bless. Hey there. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the Confident Woman Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. Thanks again for listening.